Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to
Hello.
another episode of Hacks, Tips, and Tricks for Real Estate Agents. If you don't know me, first time coming in and watching, I am Hallie McCrory, real estate agent known for selling 90 homes a year, small town, less than 100,000 people. And more recently as host of Emmy-nominated TV show, The American Dream. And I've got my co-host on here, Casey Stiers of Raleigh, North Carolina, where she's better known for being the downtown guru of her town, but she works all of North Carolina, so you can call on her for anything NC related. And before we announce our guest, I'd like to remind you guys to donate to Bunny's Buddies. We're both big rescue animal, fans. We both got our rescue babies. Those are our kids right now. So we're highlighting that charity. You know what? And I'll roll the link at the bottom in the marquee. So yeah, please donate. Please look into just at least supporting Bunny's Buddies, maybe sharing some of their posts on Instagram, Facebook. Just trying to highlight some different charities while we've got people coming in and listening to our content. So without further ado, today we brought on a very exciting guest. I like to think of him as the Michael Jordan of creative financing. I know you're going to laugh at that face, but more specifically of subject to financing as well. He has a whole network of students across the country that he's helping to learn this. Are you doing international too?
Yeah, I have a lot of international students.
Okay, so across the globe. And he's also the host of A&E's most popular TV show, Triple Digit Flip. So guys, please welcome Pace Morby.
Hallie, Casey, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate you so much. Audience that is paying attention, hopefully we can give you some information that can make you some more money and give you the tools to beat out other agents or just help out your clients at a higher level, which I think is really, really needed right now, especially as the market is trending downward. And the tough thing about even saying the market is trending downward is that there are agents right now, and there are real estate brokers right now, and there are mortgage officers right now that do not want to believe that the market is trending downward. They want to say, oh, interest rates are going down. And I find back in January, February, March, April, May, that the people that were saying, no, rates are going down. This is just a temporary blip. Those are the people that are trying to convince themselves that they're not in trouble. Days on market have more than doubled and tripled in some markets. Your clients who bought in 2020, 2021, and even beginning of 2022 do not have a lot of equity right now. And there's never been a time in history where homeowners have less equity, or there's a larger chunk of people that have underwater mortgages than right now. It is proven. It is science based on data. And so if you are an agent, you want to make more money in a down market than you make even in an up market, what I have to say will help you. I promise you that. Again, my name is Pace Morby. I am on a TV show, but who cares about that? I was doing real estate far before we had a TV show. When the TV show came to us and said, hey, we want to give you a TV show, I said, kiss my grits. I do not want a TV show. I don't want you to slow me down. But then I realized it could get our message out and help more and more people make money. So I came from a construction background. I was a contractor for a long time because my parents also were blue collar. And so what do? You do what your parents do, or you do what your immediate circle of influence do. So that's how I fell into construction. I fell into construction in my early 20s, did everything myself, found myself constantly telling myself, I think subconsciously, it wasn't even like a conscious effort. I just knew I was meant for more than working for other people's projects, doing other people's flips, renovating other people's houses. But I loved what I did because I love working with my hands, as all blue collar people do. I ran into this interesting world where I had a loan officer come to me and said, hey, as a contractor, there's this thing called 203K loans where homeowners get these loans to do the renovations on their homes. I was like, cool. I get into that world. I start doing a bunch of 203K loans from his referrals. And then I realized how slow it was for me to get reimbursed as a contractor. And I said, you know what? This is annoying. I'm just going to become a loan officer myself. And so I became a top producing loan officer and a contractor simultaneously. And I learned everything about being a loan officer. in order for me to control the 203K loan process to my construction company. So I was a licensed loan officer in Arizona for a number of years while being a contractor. And why did I do that? Well, because I wanted to work harder. Because every time I asked my parents, my dad, probably the last time I took his advice was about 10 years ago. But every time I asked for my dad's advice, the answer was, my question was, Dad, how do I make more money? My dad's answer was, work harder. It was hire people, build a team, go to workshops, go to masterminds, go learn things that you don't know that I can't teach you. It was, son, you just got to work harder. Right. So I did this. I became Open Doors' largest contractor. I became Zillow's largest contractor. I became OfferPad's largest contractor. So if you are somebody listening to this, I know more about houses than anybody I know. Okay. I know more about being a loan officer than any loan officer I know. And I got into this world, and then finally I had a breakthrough. I thought maybe I'm doing pretty well. My first time making $1 million was 2014. I took home $1 million for the first time being a contractor. And what ended up happening is I had this amazing lady, Bethany Willis, come into my life. She punches me in the gut, metaphorically, and says, you are a slave to your business, and your business is a slave to my business. And what she was to me is she was a client. I would go and do her renovation. So she was a fix and flipper and a real estate agent. And she said, one day she says, Pace, you are as replaceable as a Google search. If I go and type in general contractor, I can replace you in one day. You're as replaceable as a real estate agent. So you real estate agents out there, I'm sorry to say this, but you are as replaceable as a mobile notary. You are as replaceable as a title company. You are as replaceable as everybody else. And she says, the only person that's not replaceable in this transaction is the owner of the real estate. And she said, you are not in real estate if you do not own the real estate. You are a service provider to people who are in real estate. And I said, amazing. Thank you for punching me right in the face. How do I become an owner? She says, well, you got to find deals. You got to get your hands on actually owning these things instead of flipping them like a silly general contractor. And she sat me down on the back of my truck and she showed me how to go and generate leads for off-market sellers. And what I found is that I would generate. So here, I could be really, really long about this. I'll try not to be because I love these stories. But what ended up happening is
Hey, you know what stories teach. I was a kindergarten teacher.
Okay, love it. Okay, cool.
Stories
So
teach.
she sits me on the back of my truck. She tells me, we're going to generate you leads right now for your real estate investing business. I'm like, I don't have a real estate investing business. She goes, as of right now, you do. Pull out your stupid phone. So I pull out my phone and I said, what am I doing? And she says, we're going to generate leads. Call this number. And I'm like, who am I calling? She starts telling me the number as I'm asking, who am I calling? She goes, you're calling a postcard company that's going to send out postcards for you. I'm like, I don't know where to send postcards. I don't know who to send the postcards to. I don't know what they should look like. I don't know any of this stuff. And she says, stop being an asshole and just do what I tell you to do. And did you just call me an asshole? She's like, yeah, you're one of these people who just wants to ask every question before you take any action. So she was right. But I get on the phone with a company that sends out postcards to off-market sellers. And I go, hi, my name is Pace. I want to start generating leads. They go, no problem. What state are you in? I go, I'm in Arizona. They go, perfect. Here's our top 10 zip codes. Here's our top 10 postcards. Here's the ones that will give you the most response. Here's the list of people you should email or mail them to. And what's your starting budget? I was like, my starting budget's $2,000. And they go, no problem. And I hang up the phone after setting up these leads. And Bethany was like, you see how easy that was? She looks at her phone. She goes, I timed that. It was a 4.5-minute phone call. And now you have leads coming your way. I'm like, well, when will they start coming in? She goes, give them a week. Well, a week later, sure enough, started getting calls. I get a call. I get my first seller. Her name is Janie Munson. I go by her house. Great story. My first deal. I knew nothing about contracts. By the way, I'm not licensed. Okay. And for you real estate agents out there, I'm going to be a little bit abusive to real estate agents. I'm very sorry. I will never get my license. The people who make money are the ones that understand the non-licensed activities, the off-market stuff, the owner. I don't have to have a license to own real estate. And you real estate agents out there, I'm going to teach you how to not only get more listings and help more clients, but I'm going to tell you guys how to get some of your own properties and get your own passive income. Okay. So I get this call from Janie Munson. She says, hey, come up and look at my house. This story is like an hour-long story. I'll keep it to 4 minutes. And I go up to the house. I don't know how to fill out paperwork. I don't know how to comp a house. Much like real estate agents, when you leave real estate school, you don't know how to actually comp a house. It's not until a year, 2 years, maybe 3 years later that you actually are comfortable comping a house. I didn't know how to comp any of that stuff. So I called Bethany Willis on my way up to Janie's house. And I said, how much should I pay for this house? What am I doing? I don't have the money to buy a house. She's like, stop being an asshole and just take the action. She says, I'll tell you how much to buy the house for. She told me to buy the house for $150. I get up to the house. I start talking to Janie. I say, Janie, what has kept you from selling the house so far? I had no idea that was one of the greatest questions you could ever ask. And Janie then tells me, well, I have an offer at $165. This is my last asset. I'm going to have a teeny tiny little pension from retiring as a school teacher, and I need to move to Oregon and retire. So I need as much money for this house as possible. I've met with 15 people before you. I haven't renovated the house in 40 years. Every real estate agent that came into the house told me that I need to renovate the house before they put it on the market. I told them I don't have money to renovate. And so they basically said, well, here's my card. And I looked down at her countertop, and guess what, guys? She had like 15, 20 business cards and postcards and everything else. And she was doing her due diligence, trying to get as much money out of this house justifiably as she possibly could, although she hadn't renovated in 40 years. And when she said 165, I almost gasped. I was like, ugh, I don't think I can help you. She's like, what do you mean you can't help me? I go, my offer would be much lower than 165, and I'm so sorry. So she says, you're trying to anchor me, right? I didn't even know what the word anchor meant, which basically means giving a seller a really low ball number to then have the seller pull you up and make the seller feel like they really, really fought you and they got a great deal by beating you up on your price. I had no idea that anchoring was a thing. And I go, no, I'm not anchoring you. I truly just don't think I can help you. She goes, okay, well, what do we do next? And I go, I guess I leave. And of course, I'd built rapport. I understood, where she was moving. I asked her questions about, why are you moving to Oregon? Why this, why that? How was it being a teacher? I told her my favorite teachers' names. We built rapport. We did the thing. But as I was leaving, feeling defeated, I thought in my mind, I'm like, well, this lady's going to move. She probably needs a little bit of help, maybe loading up her truck or doing something like that. She's a single woman. And so I turned to her as I'm leaving the front door and I said, hey, is there something I can do to help you? And she's like, yeah, buy my house. I'm like, well, I can't buy your house. Is there something else I can do to help you? And she's like, what are you, a Boy Scout? I was like, yes, I am a Boy Scout.
In fact. So she says, okay, great. I trust you. Yeah, obviously through rapport. I'm trying to rush through this. You guys would understand what this buildup really was if I had the time, but I want to get into some strategy and talk to you guys about some really cool things. And she then says, okay, we'll come into my backyard. We go into her backyard. She shows me 3. Hi, little baby. How can I help you? Hey, why don't we get her to say hi?
Say hi.
Hello.
Hello. What's your name?
Corbin.
Say it again.
Corbin. You're so pretty.
So she takes me to her backyard. She literally shows me 3 bunnies that are the size of that 4-year-old child right there. And I was like, what in the heck do you have these bunnies for? And she says, well, my granddaughter brought them home. We had no idea they were Flemish bunnies that grow to be the size of a 4 or 5-year-old child. They become part of our family. I can't just give them to anybody, and I need help rehoming them. And nobody I've put on Craigslist, Facebook, nobody wants to help me because they're just too big of animals. And I go, oh, I know the person. So I call my mom. My mom's like a farm girl, and she has 3-4 acres down in Gilbert. And my mom shows up 45 minutes later, loads the bunnies in the truck, talks to Janie. She's there 30 minutes, laughing, having, fun, talking about how much my son Pace loved his teachers and congratulations on, retiring and all the things you can imagine. She takes the bunnies. Janie looks at me and she's like, you're going to take my bunnies. You're going to do all this help, but you're not even going to give me a price on the house. I go, I can't help you. And I want to point out to you guys, to you real estate agents out there, I was ill-equipped to help her. It's not that I didn't want to help her. It's not that I didn't want to buy her house. It's that I was ill-equipped to do a few things. One, I could not negotiate her from 165 down to 150. I didn't have the negotiating skills that I now have today. Two, I didn't know creative finance. Three, I'm not a licensed real estate agent to even list the property. I could have referred it to somebody, but you know how that goes. Now you're referring it to somebody else, relying on them to pay you and all those kind of things. And I just didn't have the tools to get the job done. I simply did not have the tools to get the job done. And so I left Janie's house, not buying the property. And Janie was like, as I'm getting into my truck, she's like, you're literally not going to even give me an offer, but you just took my bunnies? This is crazy. And I said, have a great day. If you need something, let me know. And I leave. And I felt great. You know, you have that euphoric, I call it the helper's high. I had the helper's high. It's like, or the helper's heroin. It's like, you just feel so euphoric from helping somebody. So I go home, I do my thing. I get going back into, you know, my rhythm as a contractor, and I'm getting leads also coming through my phone from my postcard still kind of fumbling through all of those things. And I get a call from Janie 2 weeks later, like on the dot, 2 weeks later. She says, hey, Pace, I'm a school teacher. So I gave myself homework, and on my calendar, it says today I have to make the decision on who to sell my house to. And you're the person I want to sell my house to. I'm like, oh, that's great. But I can't pay 165 for your house. I can't help you. She says, I know. I don't really care what your offer is, but I had 15 people before you and 15 people after you, both licensed real estate agents and investors and everybody else you can think of between. I even learned about this thing called wholesaling and all these things along the way. I've learned so much about this in this whole process. But out of 30 plus people I've met, you were the only person that stopped and not only asked me how you could help me, but you actually followed through right there on the spot. It wasn't fake. It wasn't vacant. It wasn't these empty promises. It was literally like, let me call my mother and bring her to your house to rehome your bunnies. And you left with no expectation. And then not only that, but you didn't just help me. You cared where I was going and what it was going to look like when I did sell my house. You were concerned where I was moving, and was that going to be safe for me? And was I going to be happy? You asked me all the questions that nobody else asked me. And then on top of it, you didn't even tour my house. Everybody else had a clipboard and they were abusing me on my single pane windows, and my hot water heater was out of whack, and my roof was deteriorated, and all these things. You didn't even bring up one of those aspects of my house. I want to sell my house to you. I don't care what your price is. I trust you. I don't trust anybody else. I go, what's our next step? She goes, I had no idea what the next step was. That's how stupid I was. And now what's funny is like a lot of these lines that I said with Janie that weren't lines at the time have become things that I train other people on, which is ask the seller, okay, what's our next step? And Janie says, I guess bring up your paperwork and let's get the deal done. I don't know how to fill out paperwork at this time. So I called Bethany Willis. Will you go on this appointment with me to fill out the paperwork? Bethany goes with me. I buy the house at 150. Bethany helps fill out the paperwork. And Bethany is just in amazement. I'm looking at her face. She's just amazed. We leave the thing. I give Janie a hug. You know, there was a little bit of tears. Janie told Bethany the story, caught her up to speed with what happened. I leave the house, jump in my truck with Bethany, and Bethany puts her hand on my shoulder and she says, Pace, I just want you to know that you learned the most valuable lesson in all of real estate. And I said, what? She says, it's never about the house. It is always about the human being that lives in the house. It's never about the house. Never, ever. And now we've done thousands of transactions. We own, as of right now, we own nearly 1,900 doors in our portfolio, and there has never been a purchase in my entire career that did not have a similar story to where are the bunnies? I'm always looking for the bunnies. And Bethany Willis, as we were driving home, she says, you know how you won this is you got into her backyard, her metaphorical backyard, which is the the deepness of what was really going on. Everybody else was hanging out in the living room or the front doorstep. You got into the backyard. You found out what was really going on. You found the bunnies and you rehomed the bunnies. And she said, I can't tell you how important this story is. And she said, you're going to see different shapes, different sizes, different colors of bunnies along your journey. But if you can stop and find the seller's bunnies and then figure out how to rehome those bunnies, you will win every appointment you go on. And I had no idea how powerful that statement was until the following week. And this is what happens. By this time, I go, wow, bunnies, problems, solving the problem. I was going into sellers' homes other than Janie, during that 3 or 4 week time frame, right when I was brand new in real estate. I was going to sellers' homes and I was trying to negotiate their number. And I was losing all of these appointments, but Janie was the one person I got the deal with. So what I did is I called each of my sellers back on the leads that I had just recently got. And I said, hey, can I stop by the house one more time? And instead, I started looking for the bunnies. And out of the 10 leads I had so far, I went and got 2 of the contracts that I already initially failed at because I was looking for the bunnies. One person just needed somebody to help them move, literally. And we still do this 8 years, 9 years later, still help sellers move when no other investor or somebody else wants to do it. Now, I get 3 contracts that first week, right? When I figure out the bunny story, I get 3 contracts. I go open them at a title company where there's an escrow officer who helped me. Her name is Eileen Brown. She's been doing cash transactions, refinances, traditional real estate, and creative finance for over 42 years at the time. Now she's at 51 years experience in creative finance. I walk in, drop 3 files on her plate. I go, I'm opening escrow on these, as if I couldn't have emailed them. I didn't know the process of opening escrow. So I drop them on her plate and she says, who are you? How did you get 3 contracts? Tell me your story. So I catch her up to speed. I tell her all the stories, how I got to where I am. Here's the thing. She's like, great. I love that bunny story. So what about all your other leads? What are you doing with them? And I'm like, well, they're dead leads. The sellers want too much money or the sellers don't have any equity. She goes, so you can't, the sellers that want too much money, why can't you just offer seller finance? And the sellers who don't have equity, why can't you do subject to? And I'm like, subject what? Subject who? Basically, I'm like, I have no idea what the hell you're even talking about. And she then explains to me that subject to is the process of acquiring somebody's property with truly no credit check, no credential check. I don't have to involve a bank. I don't have to have approval. I just go to the seller and I say, can I take over your payments on this house? And I go, okay, so like an assumable mortgage. She goes, absolutely not. Do not waste your time on assumable mortgages. I'm like, wow, really? Now, some real estate agents out there right now are probably like, wait, hold on. The only thing I know is assumable mortgages. That's all I know. My brokers told me about assumable mortgages. VA loans and FHA loans can be assumable. Guys, I've never done an assumable mortgage in my life, nor will I ever. And Eileen Brown explained to me that not only the difference, but the benefit of subject to is that I don't have to go through a credit check. I don't have to apply to the bank. I don't need the bank's permission. And I'm like, this is legal? She says, not only is this legal, but it's been done for over 100 years. It's written in the IRS code on exactly how to do it on 12 plus pages. It's written in Fannie Mae's guidelines, HUD's guidelines. It's on one of the lines on the HUD, the settlement statement talks about subject to. And I'm like, does everybody know about this? She says they should. I'm like, okay, so real estate agents are taught this. She goes, you would be blown away by the fact that all 50 states have a continued education course about subject to and seller finance, and 99.9% of real estate agents have no clue it even exists.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so if I can learn this, I can dominate. She says, mark my words. She goes, tell me this, Pace. Have you had a seller that wanted too much money for their house and you just couldn't get to their number? I go, yeah. She goes, that's called seller finance. The seller's being greedy on their price, which means you can be greedy on the terms. And I had no idea what that meant. Okay. And I'll tell people now what terms means to me in just a minute. And she goes, then there's people, have you met people that maybe did a refinance last year? They pulled out all their equity and now today they don't have a lot of equity. They're trying to sell the house to you. I go, yeah, it happened. It's happened to me 2 or 3 times in the last week. She says, okay, have you ran into people that bought an FHA, a house with an FHA mortgage or a house with a VA mortgage? And I go, yeah. And she goes, they probably don't have a lot of equity, do they?
Right.
And I go, no, they don't. And I can't buy their house deep enough because at the time, the only tool I had was buy houses at 60 cents on the dollar, wholesale them to people like Bethany Willis. Okay. And Bethany Willis goes off and fix and flips them. And I got to buy these things at 50, 60 cents on the dollar in order for a fix and flipper to put renovation costs into it and then list it on the market and sell it to a family. That's the only strategy that anybody was, that's the only thing they talk about on TV. It's the only thing they talk about anywhere.
Right.
And so Eileen Brown says, mark my words, you will become the most powerful investor in this state if you can learn subject to and seller finance. I go, but how do I learn it? She says, from me. Bring me all your horrible leads and I will show you how to structure the deals. And so that started a 6-month tenure where I would go to Eileen Brown's office 2-3 times a week. And I would go, all right, here's a lead I just talked to. Here's the numbers. Here's the situation. She goes, perfect. Buy this subject to, take over their payments, give the seller $5,000. And you could either A, wholesale it to an end buyer, B, buy it yourself and put it into an Airbnb portfolio, or C, put it into a regular rental, or D, do a midterm rental, and she just started listing off all these exit strategies that I wasn't even thinking about. All I was thinking about was fixing and flipping.
Right.
And then she tells me, I go, I can't believe you can pay 90%, 95%. In some situations, I bought houses at 105% of their value because the terms I was given were so good. And I'll give you a couple of stories of that here in a second. And I said, man, I can pay, you would pay 100% for somebody's house? I said to Eileen, and she says, Pace, it's never about the price of the house. Remember this and write this down, she said. She said, the value of something is never the purchase price. The value of something is what you can do with it. And I'm like, wow, that sounds really powerful, but I don't know exactly what that means. But I'll tell you, I learned a lot of things through this, and I'll give you a really simple example of now how I teach people how to do this. So 5 years later, I'm, in Arizona. Now I'm like the sub-2 guy, right? This is now 5-6 years ago. I've become the guy in Arizona. Nobody was even calling it creative finance. They were calling it the PACE method. They were like, "What? Look what PACE is doing around town." What I was doing is I was calling wholesalers and real estate agents, and I was saying, give me all your bad leads. I will make more money on your bad leads than you make on your good leads. And I'll just give you a kicker. I'll pay you $1,000 referral fee or whatever else.
Correct.
So here's a good story, true story. And I could even, we're on StreamYard, so I can even pull up this document so you can see it. I get a call from a guy named Tim Smith. Tim and I had done a handful of deals before, and he says, hey, Pace, I've got another crazy seller. I've got a seller at 1906 South 78th Place in Mesa, Arizona. Zillow says her ARV, her after repair value, her retail price on her house is $100,000. Now you can tell this is 5 years ago because now that house is worth $300,000. Yeah. But he says it's a $100,000 house. And as a fix and flipper, I got to pay $40,000, $50,000 for this house to make any money. And this lady's ready to retire, move, get rid of her tenants, do all the things. She just wants to get out of being a landlord. We call these people tired landlords. And they're plentiful, by the way, plentiful.
Yeah.
So, and actually this is how I got it. Hallie, this is how I got into San Angelo. Very similar story. I'll tell my San Angelo story. Mario. Yeah. Mario is one of my sellers in San Angelo. Great story with Mario. And I'll tell you his bunnies in just a minute.
Yeah.
So I go to this appointment with Tim Smith. He says, this lady's out of her freaking mind. And by this time, I now have learned so much about creative finance that I got like lawyers across the country calling me and going, how are you doing this? What did you do here? That kind of stuff.
They should be.
And I learned that when somebody says they have a seller that's out of their freaking mind, I realized there's money to be made there when the seller's out of their mind. And if you're a real estate agent, you go to an appointment and your seller says, I want to list for $300,000 and the value of the house is only $270,000, you have a couple of choices. As a new real estate agent, you'll just list the property because you don't have the skills required to tell the seller they're out of their freaking mind, but do it politically and say, hey, here's what's going on in the market. I'm happy to list at 300, but I want you to know that that's not what I would list the property at. If it was me listing the property, I would list the property competitively at 265 if you want to move it fast. I would list it at 279 if you want to be a little bit slow, but 300, I think we're pushing it, and you're going to find that in 2-3 months, we're going to have to drop the price 3 or 4 times. An intelligent real estate agent knows how to communicate with the seller in that regard. And though, people will call those crazy sellers. As an agent, I look at that. If I was an agent, my wife is an agent, top 1%, top 0.5% in Arizona. She goes to those listing. Yeah, she's at EXP.
She's in our org too, actually. So we're all under Brian Colhane, who's in Arizona as well. Yep. So we're Casey's under Haas, I'm under Lisa, and then your wife Laura's under Elena, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So Haas brought in Lisa and Tarek, and Lisa brought in Elena.
I love it.
I know.
So my wife will go on these appointments. By the way, we have talked to EXP. We can do subject to seller finance, wholesale transactions, everything at EXP. We've been given permission. I don't know how that works with everybody else, but we've been given.
That's me too. I had to go through a couple brokers for it, but I'm getting paid on sub 2 deals in Texas.
There you go. So it is legal.
We can talk on that in a little bit too.
Yes. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands what these terms are. When I throw out terms and price and all that stuff, let me give you a couple of stories, and then I can get into some nitty gritty on some other things. So I go to this appointment with Tim Smith. I meet with the sellers. Okay. And the sellers, again, the address, you guys can pull this up, 1906 South 78th Place. The seller's name is Dale and Susan Poyer. Okay, so I'm sitting in the carport. I'm standing in the carport with Dale and Susan Poyer. And I look at Susan and I said, hey, Susan, what's kept you from selling the house? Same question I asked Janie Munson years before. Same question I ask everybody. What's kept you from selling the house? Why am I here? Like, what's gone on before me? And I always use the phrase, catch me up to speed. What has been going on? And I shut my mouth and I let them talk. Now, when you hear me on a podcast, I can go on for hours and hours and hours. But when I'm in a seller appointment, I talk 1% of what I get the seller to talk. And Susan goes on and tells me a story. She says, Dale and I have been dealing with this tenant for a long time. It's a family member that's not paying on time. It's become problematic because now we go to family reunions or Thanksgiving or whatever else, and we are the rich people in our family, and everybody thinks we're being horrible to the tenants because we're asking them to pay. And when they pay 15 days late, we impose a late fee. And now we're the family members that are charging our family a late fee. And we're just sick of it. Welcome to what a tired landlord is.
Yeah.
She goes, we just want to be done with the property. And we want to go travel the country in our RV and just live the last 20, 30 years of our life exploring the country. Cool. So there's her motivation and there's her pain. Okay. And I go, okay, so what's kept you from selling the house? She goes, everybody is lowballing me, which I love that as well. I hear that from sellers all the time. I'm sure if you're an agent, you've heard that as well. I don't want to get lowballed, and I'm not desperate, right? You'll hear that from sellers all the time. I'm not desperate
right now.
More times than I like.
Yeah, in fact, I get that. I hear that from agents. When I call agents, I go, hey, I see the house has been on the market for 222 days. What's going on with the seller? Well, the seller's not desperate. Okay. Love it. But they've been on the market for 222 days. If they're not desperate, tell them not to sell their house, right? If they don't have a motivation, why are you still in the market, right? There's some motivation there. It's very obvious, but that's a line that people say to throw up a shield to protect what's really going on behind the scenes. So I said, okay, Susan, so you're not desperate. You're very little motivated. It sounds like you just want a really high number. You want $110,000 for a $100,000 house. Welcome to real estate. And Susan's logic of this is, well, if you buy the house, at one point, the house is going to go up. And so I'm basically wanting you to give me a portion of that future value. If you really see the value in this house, you'll give me 110 grand for this house, and you'll wait for your profit in the long term. That's how crazy some of these sellers can be. But if you don't know how to structure terms, you would look at this appointment and go, what do I do here?
Right.
What do I do? How do I solve this? Well, let me tell you how I solve it. So I said, Susan, let me guess. You said you're getting lowballed. Let me guess. You're probably getting offers at like 40 to 45. Maybe you've gotten an offer at 50 grand. I can tell you that person won't fulfill their obligation. They can't make money at 50 grand, but that's probably where you're getting your offers. She goes, yeah. How did you know? I'm like, well, because if I was going to give you a cash offer, that's where I would also give you a price. She goes, what do you mean if you were going to give me a cash offer? Well, I go, well, if you were going to take one of those prices, you would have already contracted with somebody. I wouldn't be here. So the reason I'm here is not for a cash offer. I'm here for giving you a terms offer. Now, sellers do not know what terms are. I use the word terms very intentionally. I use it so the seller will stop and go, wait, I don't know what terms are. Agents don't know what terms are. So let me explain to you how I explained to Susan what terms are. She goes, terms? What do you mean by terms? And I said, well, here's the thing, Susan. If I came up to your illogical number of $110,000, I would be looking for appropriate terms to match that offer. What are terms, Pace? I don't know what terms are. I go, let me tell you what terms are. So this is the same story I tell every seller. My acquisition teams tells every seller. Now I've taught thousands of people all over the country. They do the same thing. They just take this story and they change the vehicle. They change the thing. They change the story to make sure that the seller understands it. So I told Susan, as I said, this is by the 1,000th time I've told this story. I got really good at it. So I said, all right, Susan, here's what terms are. I used to be a contractor. I had an F-150. Everybody knows what an F-150 is, so that's an easy vehicle to choose, but this is a true story. I had an F-150, hit 320,000 miles. It started having issues, much like this house with you, is that there was value at one point, but now there's more headaches than it's worth. So that's what my F-150 was. Started becoming a problem. So where do I go? I decide I'm going to sell it. I'm going to go to the Zillow for cars, which is Kelley Blue Book. So I go to Kelley Blue Book. Kelley Blue Book says, based on my mileage, based on my this, based on the vehicle, everything, the car could be sold for $5,000, or the truck could be sold for $5,000. The problem is, if I put the truck on Craigslist, Susan, for $5,000, am I going to get my $5,000? No, somebody's going to lowball me, and they're going to say, I'll give you $3,100 cash today, as if that's some sort of value to me. And she goes, yeah. I go, just like the offer you're getting, $40,000, $50,000. Somebody's going to come in and lowball you because they want to turn around and make money for their own family. You can't blame them. She goes, yeah, that's a good point. So what did you do with the truck? So now I got her into the story on the truck. By the way, if you're an agent and you're not using stories and all you're doing is using facts and figures, let me get into the appointment after you. I will win every single appointment. Everyone.
Big storyteller.
Yes, that's how you win. So we're all cavemen at the end of the day. And so you have to draw hieroglyphs and things on the cave wall for people to understand things, even myself. So I say, Susan, here's what I did. I'm belligerent, just like you. I value my belongings and I want to sell this at the highest possible price. So I go on Craigslist and I put my truck on Craigslist for $10,000, twice as much money as anybody would be willing to pay for it. And I'm thinking, I just got to find somebody that sees the value in this truck, that they can go out and they can make money with this truck and justify the $10,000 purchase price. Well, surprise, surprise, Susan, that's not how the cash world works. The traditional market doesn't work that way. So 3 months went by. I couldn't sell my truck. My wife comes into my house. She says, hey, sweetheart, I got to navigate around this truck every single morning in our driveway. Like, it's not a big deal, but like after 3 months, it's something.
Yeah.
Can you please get rid of this truck? I said, what do you want me to do? Everybody, nobody's reached out to me, first and foremost. And secondly, this truck is worth more to me than what somebody's willing to pay for it. And she says, well, why don't you just take payments for the truck? I go, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? That's genius. Because I'm not desperate, just like you, Susan, you're not desperate. I'm okay getting a higher dollar amount and waiting for it. I just don't want to get lowballed. Susan's like, yeah. I go, so here's what I did, Susan. I go to Craigslist and I write F-150 will take payments. Now, did I sell that truck for $10,000, Susan? She's like, probably. I said I sold the truck for $12,500 because I had so many people reaching out to me. And I had a gentleman named Jose. He gave me $1,000 down, $350 a month. And by the end of the term of him making all the payments to me, I ended up collecting about $15,600, somewhere around there, because I also put interest on that payment. That is what terms are, Susan. I sell something to somebody. I let them make payments to me over time so that they could afford to go out and turn money with that thing. And it justifies him making a monthly payment to me. And she goes, why would he pay so much money for a truck? And I said, Susan, let me tell you something that Eileen Brown taught me. The value of something is never the purchase price. The value of something is what I can do with it. What Jose did is he took my little F-150, put it into his own paint fleet, and I saw him every month. He dropped the cash off every single month for 4 years. And he told me how grateful he was. His family made us tamales. His family did all sorts of things. We went to his daughter's quinceañera. We became friends with this family. And we watched how this truck changed his life. It added $6,000, $7,000 a month in billable construction work because now he had an extra vehicle in his fleet. He could hire people and put them in that truck and send them to a job site. So some people would argue that he overpaid for that truck. I would argue he underpaid for that truck because I gave him phenomenal terms. So I'm going to ask you again, Susan, if I come up to your $110,000, would you be willing to give me terms? Susan said, very long story short, how I got her there is another story for another day, but she gave me $0 down, 0% interest. Do I have screen share capabilities?
Yeah, I think so. Do you have a present button?
Oh yeah, I got it. Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
This is great. So I'll show you the actual the note, the promissory note that we created.
Yeah.
So you guys can see the actual structure of the deal.
Okay.
I like showing this because it does show people that 0 down deals, 0% interest deals happen frequently.
Yeah.
And the way I get them is by telling stories, right?
Yeah.
So here we go. Here's the deal. I bought it.
Yep.
I actually paid $110,000 for it. The $10,000, the extra $10,000 is right here. But the way I structured it is $0 down, 0% interest for 20 years, $375 payments. She paid my closing costs. Yes, this does happen all the time. And how did we get to 110,000? Is she says, well, I want some money down. I want a down payment. I go, no problem. Would you be okay if I gave you $5,000 down in 6 months and another $5,000 down 6 months after that? She goes, yeah, that'd probably be fine. So I started making $375 payments with her. You can see the note here. And I closed escrow on March 31st. My first down payment to her was due September 19th. My second part of the down payment was due almost a year after I bought it. So 2 days shy of a year. Where did the $10,000 come from? It came from the cash flow of the property. I kept her tenant in place. This is the craziest thing. Now, years later,
A family member.
the family member's still in that property today.
Yeah.
The difference was how I wasn't the family member collecting the rent. Now I'm an actual business owner, landlord, and I called the tenants up and I go, I'm not your family member, but I now own the property. If you pay me 1 day late, I'm kicking you out or I'm raising the rent. Okay. You've been treated like royalty. I am not the guy that's going to treat you like royalty. I'm going to treat this like a business transaction. They have never been late. Okay. Their rent payment is $1,650 per month. My payment to Susan and Dale is $375. After my insurance, my little budget of, oh my gosh, a window broke, blah, blah, blah. We net $1,012 every single month on that property. So 6 months after owning it, we had over $6,000. I gave $5,000 of that to Susan towards the down payment. 6 months later, I had another $6,000 in cash flow, and I gave Susan $5,000 of that. So not only did I get the deal, she paid the closing costs. I inherited a tenant. I got 0% interest, 0% down payment. The down payment was even seller financed over a year. Those are terms. Purchase price, down payment, interest rate, and length of time are the first 4 things you got to worry about. And then you got to figure out, am I willing to pay 110 grand for something that's only currently worth 100 or 80 or 90? Well, you do the math. If I bought something at $0 down, 0% interest, I don't even have to do renovation. And now the property is worth $270,000 and I cash flow every single month $1,000. Is that not worth it for me to pay 10 grand over retail?
Hell yeah.
That's one of thousands and thousands of deals I've done. So think about all the listing appointments that a seller, a listing agent goes into and says, man, this seller's out of their freaking mind. Well, have you offered them seller finance? Have you asked them, would you be willing to let somebody take over your payments, which is something I specialize in? And most agents' answer to that is going to be no. I don't know how. Well, here's the first thing that I would do if I'm an agent. I would first and foremost find investors in your local area that are doing creative finance and go to them and say, I'm going to this house on Thursday. I have a listing appointment with this house on Thursday. As a creative finance investor, what type of terms, what kind of price, what kind of down payment would you look for on a house like this? So that when I go to the house on Thursday, I can go in and say, hey, Mr. Seller, I've got 4 options for you. Option number 1, sure, I can list the property just like any other real estate agent can list a property. And surprise, surprise, real estate agents don't sell houses. You're going to fight with me. A lot of agents are going to fight with me. The market sells the house and the purchase price sells the house. You can be the greatest agent on planet Earth, but if the market is going down and interest rates are high, you have zero ability to sell that house, no matter how awesome you are, no matter how charismatic you are. You have to have different tools.
Right.
So let's say you go, sure, I can list the property. I can do that. Happy to do that. B, I can give you a cash offer from an investor. That should be a second option. Okay. I'll give you an all cash offer from an investor. B or C, are you open to terms? Are you open to seller financing this house if you can't get the numbers you want on A or B? Or option D, how about you and I partner? This is called a novation agreement or a seller net listing. I go to the seller and I say, hey, this house is not in perfect condition. How about I bring in some contractors or I bring in an investor partner and we renovate the property without buying it, by the way. We renovate the property and I go list the property at a higher purchase price and I guarantee a number to you. And whatever you get, everything after that is for me and my partner who's the contractor / investor. Would you be willing to do that? And that's what we call novation agreements in across the country. All 50 states, you can do those. So agents aren't doing B, C, or D. And there's even more options beyond that. They're just going in trying to get a listing and hoping that the market justifies them selling the house, and buyer's agents are going to come in and submit offers. That is the entire game for some real estate agents.
Yeah.
That's the entire game. And right now, where the majority of my deals are coming from, this is so sad to say, but they're coming from expired listings, which means an agent, as we all know, especially on an agent podcast, the real estate agents go and list a property from anywhere between 3 to 9 months, but the average or the majority of it is 6 months. How do you feel as a real estate agent with a listing that's been on the market for 4.5, 5 months?
Irritated.
Like shit.
You're irritated. Every time the seller calls you, you're like gritting your teeth.
Not listening to me.
Yeah, I do not want to pick up a phone from a seller after I've had their house listed for 5 months. And I'm done. I'm done with that house. And so what I tell people if you want to be an investor and you want to buy these types of houses, I tell them to do one of a couple things. I go, look, call the agents, because I love working with agents that know what they're doing. As an investor, I feel like most agents don't, which is actually an advantage to good real estate agents.
100%.
Good real estate agents can dominate because most agents, and just like most investors or wholesalers or title companies or whatever, most people in general are just not that hard of working, right? We all know this. So if you're a hardworking agent that wants to learn new skills, this is what I would do. I would call the agents that have listings on the market for over 120 days. And I would say, hey, looks like the listing's been on there for a while. Has your client entertained having somebody take over their mortgage or doing some sort of owner financing? Because I have investors that will buy this kind of deal. And here's what's going to happen. Most agents are going to go, that's illegal, or no. I'm going to tell you, this is why is it that the majority of my deals come from expired listings is because of this exact strategy. We call the agent. Okay, I got a great story. 4101 West Flower Street in Phoenix, Arizona. I just closed on it 2 weeks ago. We call the agent, 120 days. Hey, agent, has your client entertained an option of subject to or seller finance? Subject to just us taking over the payment, paying your commission, paying the seller a couple $1,000 to walk away from the house, or seller finance, making sure obviously your commission gets paid. What do you think the agent's response is? Is the agent's response honest, which is, wow, I haven't even brought that up to them. Would you mind telling me what exactly that means so I can actually go in an educated manner and go talk to my seller? That's not what they say. They say, nope, my seller's not interested. Nope, my seller's not interested. Or nope, my broker won't let me do that. Guys, first and foremost, if you have a broker that doesn't understand creative finance or doesn't understand cash offers, go get a different broker. Okay? Go get a different broker. Your broker should be educating you and mentoring you, not telling you what you can't do. They should say, yes, you can do that as long as blank is happening. Disclosures, protocol, etc. So we call this agent 120 days. They go, no. 140 days, no. 160 days, no. 179 days, the day before the listing expires, agent says, nope, seller's not interested. No problem. Well, guess what, guys? Even though I'm not a licensed real estate agent, I have access to your MLS that you guys think nobody has access to. I got access to it. So do a lot of investors. Your MLS is not that special. It is special, but I'm just telling you, people are sharing their logins with investors like me. You can tell on anybody you want to tell on. Nobody's going to stop me from getting MLS access. I don't need a license. So what do? I go on the MLS and I pull a list of expired listings. And guess what house pops up on the expired listing list? 4101 West Flower Street. We call the seller. His name is Bill. Hey, Bill, my name is Pace. Noticed your house was listed on the market for a bit. Looks like you didn't get the number you were looking for. What did you think about our offer that we submitted to your agent regarding taking over the mortgage payments? Bill says, never saw that offer. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Which is super illegal for us to not present all
Very
offers,
illegal.
by the way.
Right. This is so common. I cannot explain this to you. I'll give you another address, another property we just closed yesterday. But talk to Bill. So Bill said, he goes, so what was the offer? I said, my offer was to pay the agent's commissions and take over your payments. And Bill's reply was this, literally, this is recorded. Bill's reply was, you would be willing to take over my payments? You guys think sellers are like, why would the seller do this? Well, because you're thinking about the house. I'm thinking about the bunnies. I'm trying to figure out, why did this seller try to sell for 6 months and now they have a expired listing? I'm not looking at the house. I'm not looking at the price. I'm looking at what is Bill's situation. What was Bill's situation? I said, well, Bill, what's kept you from selling the house? Why did you want to sell the house? He says, I met a girl. It's where a lot of good and bad things happen. So he meets a girl, he moves in with her, decides, why do I have 2 payments? I'm sleeping half the night time at her house and half the time at my house. Welcome to being a human being. This kind of stuff happens all the time.
Right.
And he says, I'm going to sell my house. He goes and sells his house. Guess what, guys? He bought the house with a VA loan in 2021. He has no equity. No equity. But he's got a 2.7% interest rate. And the agent didn't stop and get educated for half of a year. Half of a year, the agent just sat there and goes, man, why is this house not selling? Can't lower the price anymore, because if you lower the price anymore, the seller's going to have to write a check to get rid of the house.
Right.
How common do you think that's happening right now in 2023?
Super, a lot.
Super, a lot. Okay. So Bill says, you would be willing to take over my payments? I go, yeah, and I'll give you the commission that I was going to give to the agent. He goes, whoa, you would pay me? This seller for 6 months was conditioned that he was going to have to walk away from the house with maybe even writing a check for $5,000. And so I go, oh, dang, man, I left too much money on the table here. So I said, yeah, I would pay you the commissions. And what we ended up working out is I just paid him $5,000. He let me take over his 2.9% interest rate, subject to, yes, it's legal. And I go to a title company. Title company transfers the deed into my name. Mortgage stays in the seller's name. And Bill walks away with $5,000. So I sit there and I make a video on YouTube, and I pull out all the real estate agents' cards that were sitting on Bill's desk, on Bill's counter when I bought the house. He had all these real estate agents' cards, much like Janie Munson, the lady with the bunnies. And I said, all of these agents missed out on $12,000 of commission. That you guys, what happened is the agents call on expired listings, but guess what you agents are calling on expired listings? Trying to list the house again?
Yeah.
Somebody else just failed to sell the house for 6 months. What tells you that you're going to be able to go and sell that house, especially in a downward trending market or a flat market? Because you're going to hold open houses. By the way, we all know as agents, open houses don't sell houses. Open houses give you buyers.
Right.
For you.
Yeah.
So if you're a buyer's agent,
Our neighbors.
there you go. And
New
so
neighbors.
what are you going to do different than the other agent? You have no differentiating factor, no additional skill set to go to that seller and provide a different solution. I do, because I understand subject to, I understand seller finance. I understand novation agreements. I understand lease options. And so Bill's super happy, gave us a great testimonial. And guess what? He walked away upset with real estate agents and said, real estate agents are crooks, which they're not. But how does the seller feel when you can't help your client? You can't do the best for your client. Your client now, here's the bad thing about Bill. He had to make 6 payments on that house as it was vacant. So not only did he not get the money he wanted, he actually came out of pocket for half of a year.
Right.
Okay, Gary sent a message, my daughter says. Thank you. Oh, Jerry sent, how do you know it's Jerry? Oh, you saw his name. Okay. So Jerry Norton, good friend of mine, is texting. So this happens all the time. I get a lot of agents that say, no, 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 no. And then we just call your clients. We call them the day they fire you. And so in my county, in the last 2 weeks, Maricopa County, 987 expired listings popped up on our MLS in 2 weeks. I have no lack of opportunity. If I go to San Angelo, I go to Dallas, Texas, I go anywhere in the country. I was on stage in Miami a couple of weeks ago speaking about some of this stuff. And I mentioned expired listings, and a guy in the crowd says, I'm in Riverside County. There's not one expired listing. There's so much demand. And I said, bullshit. Pull up your MLS on your silly little phone right there. And you show me that you don't have expired listings in Riverside County, California, and I'll give you $10,000 check right now.
Yeah. If we do in San Angelo, you definitely do in Riverside, California.
Yes.
We 100% do in Raleigh, but I mean, it's our market.
Every market does.
Yeah.
Every single market does. I just closed a deal in Raleigh, North Carolina 2 weeks ago. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm visiting you on Tuesday. I just bought a single family home, expired listing. Agent never even submitted an offer to the seller. So this, this is what I do. After I get the deal done, we're all closed escrow. I got a title policy. I went through the legal process of buying subject to. I call the agent who represented the seller and I say, hey, you might remember me. I called you 4 times, but I want to let you know I ended up buying that house. I bought it subject to, and you missed out on $11,000 of commissions. I never want this to happen to you ever again. How can I sit down with you? How can I educate you on this process? How can I talk to your broker? I want to build a relationship with you. So agents, the reason why I'm on this podcast is because I want you to understand that this is an additional 15 tools in your tool belt.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You not only could be buying properties this way with no money down, taking over mortgages with no credit, you could also be assigning these. This is the crazy thing about agents. They don't think wholesale is legal. It is.
It is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Last thing I'll say, and maybe you guys have a couple of questions, but I
do
have
have a question. I've been holding on to it.
I have a couple of agents that will come to me and go, wholesaling is illegal. I go, no, you're just uneducated. And the reality is, if I was an agent, I would be going and this is what I would do. If I was just a licensed agent today, I have no capital, I have no resources, I have nothing but my phone. Here's what I would be doing. I would find buyers like me that are buying and holding in your market, and people that are willing to
find people like
what's
you.
that?
Well, just I want to pause right there. How would they find people like you?
Oh,
Like for
easy.
me,
Go on
I'd
the
probably
MLS. Go on tax records. Go and do a history search of like who has bought, what investors have bought with LLCs
Yeah.
on your MLS in the last 30 days, and call those people up and go, hey, are you buying and holding? If I brought an opportunity where the financing was already in place and you didn't need a credit check, would you be open to buying a property in this zip code that I just saw you buy one 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
What do you think their answer is going to be? Yeah, I just bought 2 weeks ago. That's how you got my phone number.
Well, and we could probably get you plugged, or if someone's watching this and thinking like it's relating to them, we could probably get you plugged in with a not a homeschooled, I'm thinking of Tarks, with a sub-2 student too.
Yeah, we have
Like, that's what
10,000
I
of
do.
them.
My father-in-law is a sub-2 student, and then we've got Alex Salazar and Sonia King in this area.
Yes, Alex Salazar actually was on the lake with me yesterday.
So, and you probably have some here in Raleigh.
We have a lot in Raleigh. We have tomorrow on Tuesday when you come and see me, I'll have 150 of them probably hanging out at that bar.
I've got something from 6 to 6:45. I'm going to try to be there by 7. So
I love it.
Yeah.
So I would
know that they've heard the bunny story, and what I like, because I feel like there are, well, and I feel like what a lot of real estate agents are scared about are maybe investors who are like not looking for the bunnies and are just out for themselves.
Yeah, those investors exist, but here's the thing I would be afraid of. I think that let me finish this one thought, and I'll tell you what I think most agents are afraid of. The thought is, if I'm an agent and I want to go make money this week, like literally this week, not wait 60 days, not put it in escrow and wait all this time. I could find a deal and close a deal this week is how fast this could happen. Get a couple of students of mine, go to my Creative Finance with Pace Morby Facebook group. There's 100,000 people in there. 10,000 of them are my active students. And they usually will have like Pace Morby student on their name or something like that. Go find them. Build a 5-minute relationship with them. Are you buying in this market? Great. I'm going to go call sellers. Call expired listings and say, hey, my name is Pace. I am a licensed agent. However, I'm not calling to list your property. I'm wondering if anybody has brought up taking over payments or doing some sort of owner finance. You're going to hear 8 or 9 no's, but you're going to hear probably, if you've made 20 calls, you'll hear 3 yeses and 17 no's. Plan on it. Okay. If you don't get 17 no's, you're not going to get a yes. You'll hear 17 no's. No, I need my money right now. No, I need my money right now. No, we're going to relist it. Okay, cool. No problem. Call the next one. If you make 20 calls, you get 3 yeses. 3 yeses turns into 1 contract. So 20 calls turns into 1 contract, if that makes sense. Okay. Those are the analytics. I would get the property under contract, not a listing agreement. I would get it under contract and I would assign it to a buyer and have them close that week or within 10 days. And I personally, as an agent.
Is that correct? Which is one of your students?
Yeah, one of my students or just a buyer. It doesn't have to be one of my students. There's a lot of people that do creative finance that are not my students. My students know what the heck they're doing, which is great. So that's an easy place to find them. That's like low-hanging fruit.
Right.
But what I would do is I would assign it. And this is another thing I just see agents not doing is they just go after their silly little commission. If you got a $300,000 house that somebody's going to buy subject to, and they're going to go off and make amazing cash flow with no credit check, no credentials, none of that stuff. They just got this amazing deal. Happens every day. Why are you only going for 3% commission? How about you just forget the commission side of your brain and do an assignment and go, I have the property under contract. I'm going to charge this buyer $15,000 finder's fee, which is called an assignment fee, legal in all 50 states. There's not one state this is not legal in. It's legal in every state. You can make more money assigning a subject to deal than you could by listing a cash deal. Right. Which is crazy to me. The full retail price, assigning a subject to deal, you'll make more money than going and doing a cash deal and getting your commission. So just another tool. I'm not saying do that 100% of the time. And I'll shut up here in 30 seconds. I think agents' biggest fear is verbalizing outwardly that they don't actually understand real estate that much. They go to school, they get a license, and now they're the licensed professional. Yet most real estate investors can wipe the floor with a real estate agent's knowledge. And in fact, I have not met a broker in the last 5 years that knows more about real estate than I do. And I told the broker, we were in a heated argument. I'm sorry for agents. This is not meant to be negative towards agents. It's meant to be a wake-up call. I was in a heated conversation with a broker, and I said, you know why they call them brokers? Because they're broker than me. You want to make more money? Get educated. Get your weight up, dude. Get your education up and be, it's okay to not know things. And it's even more okay to say you don't know things so that you can get educated. But what brokers do and agents do is that when they hear something they don't have the ability to articulate or talk about, they immediately say, that's illegal, or my broker won't let me do it, or whatever. And that's their way of saying, I don't want to tell you that I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
That is exactly it.
Yes. Now, there's at least one agent listening to this that's like, F this guy. I hate him. He's being cocky. Guys, I'm not cocky. I'm like that. I'm like your dad that's like, dude, please learn this. You will make more money. You will be happier. And more importantly, you'll win more listing appointments by going in there with 4 or 5 options rather than just being the listing agent. And here's what ends up happening. Even if you miss out on the listing appointment and they go and list with their cousin, their uncle, their whatever, which is what sellers do a lot of times. They don't even list with who was the best agent, which is crazy.
Right.
They list with whoever's in their church or whoever bumped into them at the grocery store. That person beat you out on a listing appointment, not because they're better than you, but because nepotism does exist. And the best thing to do is be the person that has more options. And when you miss out on that listing appointment and they still fail, then call them back up and go, hey, these options are still available to you. Remember, we talked 5 months ago. I'd love to have a conversation with you about these 5 options. Be that person that just brings more value than anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And solves their bunnies.
Yeah. Find the bunnies and find the person that's going to rehome them.
So I had a question. I'm working on a deal out of Fayetteville as we speak.
I love Fayetteville.
She has crappy credit and she doesn't want her family knowing what she makes for many reasons. And it's a house across the street from her grandparents. And they've came to her about her buying it, but they don't. I kind of mentioned, would they be willing for you to basically just pay them monthly? And I probably worded it wrong. I'll be the first to tell you, I more than likely did. But they're like, no, we just want the money and go, because it's like an estate kind of deal. Mm-hmm. His grandson has it. He's just wanting to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Is there any way you can think of that I could rephrase this and make this happen for her?
Yeah. So what'll happen a lot of times, there's 3 reasons why a seller will not sell to you on terms. Okay. Number 1, 90% of the time. The other 2 reasons are only 5% of the time each. The first reason is 90% of the reason why they won't sell to you is because you did not explain the benefits to them properly. That's it. The other 2 reasons is because number 2, they need the money now for something very specific. If I find that there's nothing specific they need the money for, then it goes back to number 1, right? Like I had a gentleman that was like, well, I need money for my daughter's wedding. Oh man, we could talk about creative finance for 5 hours because I use what we call the Morby method to buy the property, which is a mixture of 2 different strategies. And I got him the down payment that he needed. But in the beginning, he was like, no, I'm not going to sell to you on terms because I need a large chunk of money to go pay for my daughter's wedding. Okay, great. Well, let's talk about that. Let's figure out how we can accomplish that. And then the third reason is because they literally don't have any motivation. That's it. They just are like, I'm not really motivated. So I think it's number 1. This is what I typically do when I'm talking to a seller. I go, hey, I probably won't be your first option, but I want to make sure that I'm your best option. Mm-hmm. When can we talk about what my options are? And I would give them a cash offer. If I were you, Casey, I would go to them and say, if you're going to list the property, this is what you should list it for. Yes, I'm a listing agent, but you probably already have somebody, or maybe they're already listed. I don't know.
He's actually got somebody now. And his big thing, I do know this is his inheritance. That's his big reason why he's wanting it. He doesn't have any,
so
but they want to sell to her because they know her. They have a personal relationship.
Okay, so what are the benefits to him selling the property with creative finance? It's not just a higher purchase price. it's also, what are the implications of the taxes that he gets in a big windfall situation? Let's say he just gets a big chunk of cash through an inheritance. What does his tax situation look like? A lot of times seller finance can help mitigate a lot of the taxes that the seller is going to receive. So I don't know his numbers. I don't know his whatever. This is where coming to the table and providing more value really comes, where it comes in is I go to the seller and go, hey, a lot of times people will say no because they don't understand these other things. And while you're over here looking for cash offers with your agent, I just want to be the offer that's in your back pocket. Okay. So a lot of times they'll push you and give you resistance because they think you're trying to close them right now. But if you tell them, I want to be an offer that sits in your back pocket, they will then shut up and listen to you for an hour or 30 minutes or 20 minutes. And also with creative finance, you have to throw things at the wall like, well, what about this? And what about that? And what about this? So for example, he wants the money now. Okay. For what? Like what magically popped up in your life at the same exact time that your inheritance?
$300,000 for.
Yeah. What are you going to do it for? What are you going to do with it? And also, what are the tax implications of that $300,000? You understand that, you go, you're not really getting $300,000. You're going to end up getting about $190,000 if you don't structure this properly. And this is another thing that agents, I think, should get educated on is what do the tax implications of my sellers look like? Because that actually is another arrow in your quiver that you can use when it's appropriate. This seller, if he sells it for $300,000 or gets $300,000, he's going to have an inheritance tax. That will be significant. It will be over 30%. Fun. But in a seller finance situation, he can receive payments over time. And also, Casey, what if she has horrible credit, right? But they want to sell the house to her. Why couldn't you structure something that says, let her buy the house, no credit check, start making payments to you now, and give her 36 months to refinance you out. And when she does a refinance, you then get the remaining balance of what's owed to you. You can structure seller finance to 3 years.
So,
I've done seller finance where
for like 30 minutes. So
I got an apartment complex under contract in Tucson, Arizona, a couple of days ago, 160 units. We offered seller finance and the seller says, no, I don't want to do seller finance. And I said, cool. Let me just be the offer in your back pocket if you can't get the number you're looking for. But while I structure that offer, can you give me a couple of reasons why you don't want to do seller finance? He says, well, because I want to retire. I go, okay, great. So do you have some sort of $20 million cruise planned or what? Like, what is the thing you're going to use the $20 million for? He says, that's a good point. He goes, well, I honestly, I think it's just a mental thing. I just want to be done with all my properties. I go, great. If I could get you the number you want, what if I give you a down payment, I make you payments, and you just let me wait until interest rates hit a specific point and they come down a little bit, and I am then legally required to refinance you out at that time. So I structured what I call a floating balloon that says, when interest rates come down to 5%, I am legally required to refinance you out and give you the remaining balance of what is owed to you. He goes, what if it takes 4 years? I go, well, then it takes 4 years. He goes, what if it's in 24 months? I go, well, then I'll get you paid in 24 months. There's so many ways you can structure these deals that provide infinite opportunities for everybody involved. So I would do something like that. I would offer a balloon to the guy where it's like, okay, I get my higher number. I'll be able to mitigate a lot of the taxes. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. But I'm also not going to sell her finance to this lady for 30 years. She's going to give me a windfall of cash. I did this deal with this lady. She says, well, I want you to here's the problem, Pace. This was 4 years ago. The lady's name is June. She says, here's the problem. The market's going up. And so every time I refresh Zillow every 30 days, my house has gone up $10,000. I go, all right, June, here's what I'll do. Seller finance the property to me. And the purchase price will be the Zillow, the day we close escrow, Zillow price plus 20 grand. That was literally in the purchase price on the contract. It says Zillow price at day of escrow plus $20,000. So my escrow officer had to sit there and pull up Zillow, look at the Zillow price, add $20,000 and update the settlement statement to that number. there's literally infinite opportunities here. So even you can give them a higher purchase price.
Mhm.
Say, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw in a little bit higher purchase price. This will help out with you winning at a higher level. She then gets into the deal. And now here's the greatest part about this, Casey. Your buyer, the girl across the street that doesn't have great credit,
Mhm.
if you go and set this up with a servicing company like Westar Servicing or Phase Servicing, they can have this actually report to her credit as a mortgage that she is paying on time, even though it was purchased on seller finance.
Okay.
And now, instead of, let's say, 24 months down the road or 36 months down the road, interest rates come down a little bit. She fixes her credit a little bit. Instead of her doing a purchase loan, she's actually doing a refinance loan, which is way easier and way simpler.
Mhm.
This helps your seller. It helps your buyer. Creative Finance literally provides 10 solutions to both sides that didn't exist before we had this conversation.
Yeah. True. Very true. So.
Well, it sounds like the more, I mean, like you said, the more you know about the person's situation and the more you try to find out the bunnies and motivations, that only helps you to become more creative in the process with it too.
I think one of the biggest issues here, okay, this is one of the reasons why investors don't like working with agents. And there's like a little bit of like a Capulets and Montagues, like the Leonardo DiCaprio, what's the Romeo and Juliet type of thing of like, we live in the same city, but we have like this unspoken rivalry between the Capulets and the Montagues, right?
Mhm.
I freaking love working with real estate agents, but the challenge is if I'm talking to an agent and I'm trying to find the bunnies of the seller, the agent has not even tried to find the bunnies. The agent has not sat down and said, what can I do to craft this deal to give you the highest possible price with the best possible terms, make sure everybody makes money in the situation. So now you, Casey, yeah, for you, Casey, you go to that agent and you go, hey, I've got the daughter or the girl, the family member across the street I'm representing.
Mhm.
If there's an agent involved, you now have to talk to the agent and rely on the agent to actually understand the bunnies. And
Mhm.
so for me, in a perfect world as an investor, I really wish agents knew how to do this because I would stop going around them after I don't go around them. I wait for the listing to expire. But what I'm really waiting for is the blockade between the seller and their bunnies to dissipate so I can actually talk to the seller and understand what's going on, because very rarely do the agents actually know what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well,
But
thank you.
if I were you, I'd call the seller or the seller's agent, and I would say, hey, here's a couple of options I can throw out. I might not be the most ideal offer, but I think will be the best offer.
In the
And
long run, it'll be better for you. So.
Yeah, in the long run, it'll be better for you. And I think the way to win this is just keep me in your back pocket. If he doesn't get his cash offer he's looking for, then let's revisit this in a couple of weeks or in 30 days. Thank you, babe. Here you go. I know I got it. Thank you. So I would say we could set up some sort of balloon where he could guarantee he gets his money, he gets his house back, or he gets all his money within 36 months or 24 months. He gets some sort of down payment and he gets to receive a monthly payment every single month until she has the ability to refinance. This will help him get a higher purchase price. It will make sure everybody's commissions gets paid. It will also incentivize her to, fix her credit or whatever it is, to then go and refinance him down the road. It gives her the ability to refinance rather than a new purchase. And it also helps him mitigate a lot of the taxes that he's going to have from the inheritance.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah. I have a question. I guess being with EXP, we've got workplace where agents can come together in groups and talk about different issues. I mean, or promote stuff, whatever. So lately, I've been seeing a lot of agents coming on and asking for advice with subject to transactions, and it seems like they go to their trusted title company and attorneys. And it seems like the attorneys also don't know or maybe don't have experience with subject to either. And so they, it ends up being like you said, the lack of education just causes people to say, the seller could get screwed. It's not a good deal, blah, blah, blah. What can real estate agents, I mean, do you suggest they try to find other title companies?
I own a title company that closes escrow in 43 states. We do subject to, seller finance, novation agreements, lease options, Morby methods, anything you can imagine creatively. We do refinances, traditional real estate. We do it all. The name of our title company is Complete Title and Escrow. Complete Title and Escrow. And I would tell you, email team@completetitleandescrow.com and say, I have a file and my team can handle it. They can walk you through the process. They can even get on a Zoom with you. And if you have a seller or an agent that's confused by this, my escrow officers will help them walk through it and go, oh yeah, here's the thing. Here's how to do the paperwork. Yep. Here's the form in your specific state. What's funny is a lot of times people don't realize that the real estate agent forms for doing subject to and seller finance novation agreements are already in your guys' state form file we call ours zip form, I think is what my wife calls hers.
Yeah.
So it's like already in your guys' zip form files. You already have the paperwork, but you probably need somebody walking you through and how to do it. Also, I own a company called Top Tier Transactions, which is a transaction coordination business that specifically helps out with creative finance. So if you ever need one of my escrow officers to come in and teach your agents, or if you ever need one of my transaction coordinators to come in and teach your agents, they can hire the transaction coordinators. They can hire the escrow officers to do the work nationwide. 43 states. We're not doing South Dakota, North Dakota, and like places where only beavers live, but we'll do files just about anywhere.
Okay, and then the email for Complete Title and Escrow, it was info@completetitleandescrow.com.
Yep, info@completetitleandescrow.com.
I'm going to, there we go. Have it
There you
up there. Okay, good. So we've got a solution for that. Yeah, and I've even had Alex come talk to our team, like talk on our team meeting. So even some students can help too. Yeah, I guess I think that's kind of the issue that a lot of agents are running into as well, or especially the ones that are acknowledging lack of education, but then go to their trusted title companies and attorneys, but then it's the same blockade. So I think the solution here is working with, not that they're not your person isn't a trusted attorney or a trusted title company, but I think the solution here is working with a title and escrow that actually has done a lot of these deals.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with them as a negative thing, but I look at it this way. When I first started making good money, I went to my CPA and I said, hey, all these people on YouTube and Instagram are talking about how they don't pay taxes. I don't understand this. How do I not pay taxes? How do I get out of paying taxes? I don't want to do this. How did Mitt Romney and Donald Trump do this? How do I do that? I don't want to pay taxes. My CPA says, you'll never be able to do that. That's stupid. Don't ever think about that. This is a trusted person I liked. Now, looking back 10 years later, I look at that person, I'm like, how is that person a CPA? So I went and interviewed another CPA, and then I interviewed another CPA, and then I got educated. I know more about tax mitigation than my first CPA did, which is sad, but it is true. Guys, just because somebody's licensed doesn't mean they've taken the education and they understand things. I would never hire a CPA who's not a real estate investor themselves. And that's what the biggest issue was. My first CPA was somebody who didn't own a single rental property, didn't understand my business. So it's the same thing with creative finance. Find the closing attorneys and the escrow officers that focus on this. If you're in Texas, Texas is plentiful. You've got Scott Horn, you've got Allison Tipton, you've got Sherry Alley, you've got some of the most prolific title and escrow companies in the whole country are in Texas, for heaven's sakes. You have no excuse. And you like your escrow officer because you should, because their marketing director paid for your lunch and learn or paid for some of your marketing, and they earned your loyalty. The way you earn my loyalty is we make more money together than before I met you.
Yeah.
Not you paying for my lunches and my lunch and learns and my marketing. I want to be able to make more money because I met you. So complete title and escrow was the solution to that for me. Is that every time I bought in a new city, like North Carolina, South Carolina,
Right.
I'm like, I need to find a closing attorney in North and South Carolina where I'm buying that actually knows this stuff.
Well, and I think it's good too because or to have these resources that can help you explain to your sellers, not only just for, if you're new to this, but when I went to EXP, they said we could do this, but you know, so when I've done sub two transactions, it seems like you guys have a contract that you like to use. We're licensed on our own promulgated forms, but we're not licensed to explain your contracts.
Right.
So you actually do, in order to avoid fines or violating any rules that we have, you're going to have another resource come in and explain the contract to your client.
Right.
So I think building these relationships with PACE's students or the complete title and escrow, representatives to explain contracts and what's on a contract that is not a promulgated form. I think you're gonna need that in your situations. Of course, ask your state broker. This is what I got for Texas, but yeah, and then you would just put it in, your transactions.
Best piece of advice for a real estate
broker.
agent: go work with brokers that are investing in real estate themselves and have been in the game long enough. I see a lot of agents that are working underneath brokers that are not even investing themselves. And this was a scary statistic. Okay. Did you know that 87% of real estate agents don't own a single rental property?
Crazy. We're not in that. By the way, we both invest.
I know. And I'm just saying, like, you should have a broker that is even if they don't have a big portfolio, they have one rental, two rentals.
Yeah.
Find a broker who is intentionally trying to build their portfolio so that you are around the people that are building their portfolio. So you ultimately want to build your portfolio. What do they say? Show me your friends. I'll show you your future.
Mm-hmm.
I say, show me your broker and I'll show you your future.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's brokers who are investing, or this isn't San Angelo, but just talking with Alex, he's gone to other brokers and they totally dismiss him and they're just still in that fix and flip or fix and hold mindset and are totally dismissing subject to. Like, I think you got to look for even the more, not only investing brokers, but your more forward thinking ones too.
Yeah. And every time Alex is a funny guy because he's been in my world for a bit. I was literally on the lake boating with him yesterday. Flew him out to Arizona and just wanted to thank him for being such a great leader in our community and spend the day with him. Took him to Nobu, and then he's such a Texan. Didn't want to eat any seafood. All he wanted was a silly steak. But hung out with him yesterday, and I remember when he first entered into our community. He's very he would get really frustrated every time he would talk to an agent that would say, "Well, this is illegal." And he'd talk to a broker, he'd talk to a title company. This is illegal, or this is the problem, or whatever. I said, Alex, how are you not looking at that as the greatest positive thing ever? And he's like, what do you mean? How is that positive? I said, those are all everybody else looks at those people as their competition. But because I know how to do this, I look at them, I'm like, you cannot touch what I bring to the marketplace. Yeah. And it should highlight the fact to you that you don't really have any competition. This is a blue ocean of possibilities. Yeah. Just because you know 10% more, 20% more than those agents, you should be grateful that they feel that way because it just gives you way more opportunity.
Yeah. Absolutely. Cool. Well, I know Casey just texted me. She has to run to a recital. I have a 30. Yeah, I have a few other questions for you. Do you still have? We're at an hour and a half now. I don't.
Sure. Yeah. Casey, we'll see you later.
I'll see you Tuesday. So
yeah, I'll see you Tuesday.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Of course.
Have a great week, and I am going to exit out of here and go to
see you later.
Have fun. Thanks, Case.
I don't know how to exit. Oh, leave studio.
Perfect.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so this is more, I guess, of a personal question. So you own a title company. It sounded like you were in mortgages. Are you still in the mortgage business?
No, I own a lending business now. I don't want to be a service provider to anybody. I want to own service companies, but I don't want to be a service provider. So I'm not a loan officer anymore. I let go of my license probably 6 years ago.
Okay. Okay, got it. But yeah, you yourself aren't, but you own a lending company.
Yeah, we own a hard money lending business and then also a transactional funding business. So people that need like double close money or like I need $300,000 for 12 hours type of
Yeah.
business.
Is that the Gator lending?
Yeah, it's called Alpha Gator is the name of my business. And
Oh, okay.
we've got unlimited money essentially to anybody that needs transactional lending anywhere in the country. Just hit me up on my Instagram. I'll give you money.
Okay. Yeah, and we've got Pace's well, his personal Instagram at the bottom and then his sub2 community as well. Do you have a lot of agents that are in your sub2 community too?
Yeah, I'd say 20% of my students are licensed agents.
Okay.
So a couple thousand. But if you think about it, if there's 50 states, I've got 10,000 students. I have about 200 students on average per state, and about 20% of them are licensed. So about 40 agents.
Okay.
So it's like an
anywhere we've
untapped
got-
market.
Yeah. That's so crazy. Well, and I personally just closed one with Alex, and I think it's actually the one that Grant just bought with you, his first one. It makes me emotional, like when you tell your stories, and that's the point of storytelling. But I've seen it personally myself, help my clients, where they're in a tough situation. Maybe they had good equity, but like for example, on my end, my clients finance solar panels, and so that wiped out their equity. Got into a situation where their mom, who was the caretaker during the day, got cancer and she couldn't take care of them anymore. So then they had to pay for super expensive daycare. We're on the verge of not being able to pay for their mortgage anymore. So they needed a quick out. So I looked at this. I was like, okay, upside down on their mortgage and solar payments. Need to get out quick. They were also getting a divorce. Call up Alex, and I guess he called Kevin, and you happened to be with Grant that day. And then it looked like, so they got, I think they got their money. You guys paid me a commission. But now now hearing this, I'm like, I need more education because I could have assigned that myself. But happy to, Alex helps me so much. So that was good.
It's cool to have people like in every market that can help you out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and especially now that we're going to be working in the Dallas market too, I think there's going to be even more opportunity there, just being in a bigger city. But so you guys are taking this on the back end and renting the house out normally. So this is like a whole nother education piece. I look at the house and I'm like, okay, it's 1,400 square feet rent for here, like long-term renting, year over year is about $1 a square foot. So I'm like, well, they can only get like 1,400 a month for this. I'm like, I'm just kind of doing the math in my head. And then I watched the YouTube video that you just put out with Grant going through the numbers, and you're doing the pad split where you rent out the room, or rent out each of the rooms, not like the whole house long-term. And I think you said that you're getting 2,100 a month. And I'm like, there's so many different aspects to this where you can pull in or you could, turn it around and owner finance it to another person and wrap it. It's almost like you need to take time to hyper learn it and just.
It takes a couple of years,
Yeah.
and this is where I'm so grateful for the fact that that's the case, because, it's just like hiring employees or scaling a business. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And it's hard because you have to work on yourself, right? Building a business. It's like, if I give you the technical, mechanical things, it's like, oh yeah, easy. Check the box, check the box, check the box, hire people, put a team together, build culture. Oh, it sounds easy. But the biggest challenge is yourself. the quality of people you hire, the quality of the atmosphere you have is always based on you as the leader. So people have a hard time with that and they never scale. And so when I'm going through these hard times in my business, I stop and I remind myself how grateful I am that this business is so hard, because all I have to do is do the work and I beat everybody else. So it's the same thing with exit strategies. I look at it, I go, yeah, there's a lot of exit strategies and there's a lot of things to learn. But I'm so grateful there is, because it means nobody else wants to do the work. And if you just go through and you take the time, podcasts like this, guess what? You're going to have an idea. You're going to be inspired. You're going to be whatever. And it's going to push you to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And then the next thing then enlightens everything else. And then 5 years down the road, you're like, somebody comes up to you and goes, Hallie, how do you know so much? Where did you learn this? What book did you read? You're like, what book didn't I read? What seminar did I not go to? What mastermind group did I not attend? Right. And I'm grateful for the fact that we have the opportunity to be better than other people by being patient through our learning. And it's okay to be imperfect, because everybody else is trying to be perfect, are not taking action. And you and I are taking imperfect action every day and just acquiring skills along the way.
Oh, I love that. That was so good. So good. Okay, so just closing out. I know I don't want to take too much of your time. Any last hacks, tips, or tricks for real estate agents with creative financing?
Look around you to the 5 people that you hang out with the most, the people you take advice from the most. Your broker. Look at your broker. Say, does your broker have a life that you want? I know this is cliche. People have heard this before, but I can tell you, people always ask me, what would you do better if you could go back 10 years ago? I go, I would have replaced. Here's what I would have done. I would have taken inventory of everybody in my phone. I would have gotten through my contact list, and I would have put an emoji next to everybody's name, either a plus sign or a minus sign emoji next to everybody's name. If you are neutral in my life, you're not adding or taking away from me, I would still put a negative, because it's just neutral. If you are taking things away from me and you don't have a life that I want, I would put in a negative next to your name. If you're somebody I want to be like, inspired to, be around more, you are doing things that I want to do, I would put a plus sign next to your name. And you'll find that it's like 97% of the people in your phone are people that will have a negative emoji next to their name. So your goal, funny enough, is just find more of those plus signs. And then I have my little favorites list, right? I go to my favorites on my iPhone and I have like 10 people's names. I then will take inventory of those 10 people every month and go, have I served them and have they served me? Are they still doing things I inspire to do? If your broker is not on that list, you need a different broker. If the agents you're hanging out with are not on that list, you need different friends that are agents. If your closing attorney and your title and escrow company are not on that list, you need a different title company or closing attorney. Those things, the who's, not the how's, right? Everybody says how. I reply with who. It's always who. It's never how. Who do you need around you that you can rely on? Who can inspire you? Who can fill in the blanks on questions that you will inevitably have? It is a requirement for you to fail. Success requires you to fail. It's okay. People go, oh, it's okay to fail. You're learning. No, it is a requirement to fail in order to learn. But the success and the hack there is, who is next to me that can help me pick myself up after my failure, so I can go and move on to the next failure as quickly as possible. And you want to make sure that those people are on your favorites list with a nice little plus sign next to their name. That's just a small little easy way to go through. You sit on your couch today. Instead of scrolling through Instagram and TikTok, scroll through your contacts and go, holy crap. So that's hack and tip number 1. Hack and tip number 2 is I would somehow, some way figure out how to get into one of my sub 2 meetups. We have one every week in Dallas, once a month in San Angelo, once a week in Houston, if you're in Texas, and anywhere in the country, all 50 states, we have sub 2 meetups every single month. Get locked into one of those and get around people that are doing creative finance, and you'll learn way more than reading a book.
100%. Although you do have a new book.
Who cares about it?
For agents to read?
Yeah, no, I would tell agents to go on my YouTube channel and go watch deal breakdowns. Where did the deal come from? What's the address? What were the seller's bunnies? How did I solve the problem? And more importantly, how did I monetize on the house is really important for you guys, because as agents, you'll stop thinking like you are looking for commissions.
Right. Right.
Multi-millionaires are not looking for commissions, guys. I'm going to say that again. Multi-millionaires are not looking for commissions. Billionaires don't even know what the word commission means. So you guys want to trend into the wealthy category. It's never going to be based on commissions.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I guess I could dive into that with EXP later, but that's why I think me and your wife have both chosen EXP, because they recognize that with real estate.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Pace, thank you so much for coming on today. I mean, hour and 40 minutes of your time, and especially with how busy you are, I mean, that just means the world. So
No
thank
problem.
you. And
I
really
appreciate
hope,
the opportunity.
I think this is going to touch a lot of agents. I really do. So
Let me know when it comes out. We'll push people to it.
okay, perfect. All
Okay,
right.
thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.